it's Brooke, and if you did not know, I am an alumni of the Disney Cultural Exchange Program from 2018. I was there over the summer, and I worked in merchandise. So my home location was Walt Disney. However, I traded a ton of my shifts and ended up in Adventureland a lot, which is what you guys are going to be seeing me talk about today. My Adventureland shifts almost was the same number as my World Disney shifts, so I was there a lot. So I feel like I can speak well to it, and I loved it there in Adventureland, but I do feel like I need to make the little disclaimer that everything I say is my own personal opinion, not of the Walt Disney Company. It is my opinion, my experiences, my everything. These are my stories, so yeah. For those of you who have been watching my videos for a while, we're back in the old location. I finally finished unpacking and I washed my tapestries, and now they are back up covering my closets right here. So yes, it's Epcot, yes, it's beautiful, I love them. But let's get to the reason we made this video, to talk about Adventureland. So I can only speak to Adventureland register shifts. There are also HOH shifts, stock shifts, and Squeeze Breeze, and Adventureland also has Glow. But today I'm just going to talk to you about like the main merchandise style shifts, because that's all I worked while I was there. Stocker, pretty easy, you stock the shelves. HOH is like the morning, so you kind of make sure everything's ready to go in the morning before the store opens. Your shift starts at like 5 a.m. And then Glow is cash trained when you're selling Glow merchandise out, so that's going to be like any Glow shift on Disney property. So I'm sure there's videos about stuff like that out there if you wanted to go check those out. I just don't personally have any experience with them today. So when you get Adventureland on your schedule every week, there are going to be 3 possible things that it could say. It could say, besides like stock, HOH, whatever, it's just going to say ADV, which means Adventureland, or it's going to say Adventureland Zone 1, or it's going to say Adventureland Zone 2. And all those 3 things mean different things. So if yours just says Adventureland, that means your CIF, which something about call in factor, I don't know exactly what it stands for. Basically, if someone calls out, that means that you're going to take over their spot. So wherever they need you, that doesn't mean if no one calls out you don't get to work that day. No, you still have to go to your shift, you still have to work that day, but they're just kind of going to put you wherever they need you. So you could be at any of the stores in Adventureland doing anything. For this, you're going to wear the general Adventureland pajamas costume, because you don't know where you're going to be until you get there. Adventureland Zone 1, if it says that on your schedule, it's going to be the Agrabah Bazaar and Buona Bob's, which is the cart out at the front of Adventureland, and then Zone 2 is going to be Pirates of the Caribbean. The break room for Adventureland is going to be the West Side Grab and Go, which is going to be down in the utilidors. If you manage to get to your location upstairs through the utilidors, you should have passed the break room as you are walking by it. It's right there. They sell some okay food. Bring your lunch though, but there's fridges and stuff. Yeah. So let's first talk about Adventureland Zone 1. So like I said, this is going to be the Agrabah Bazaar and Buona Bob's. So the Agrabah Bazaar is the store right beside Aladdin and Jasmine, right behind the magic carpets of Aladdin, all outdoors. So is Buona Bob's, and the costume is the Adventureland. It's right here. The pajamas is what a lot of people call them. I love this costume. Super comfortable, super nice. The only thing is the mesh on the side had this horrible tendency to rip all the time ridiculously, and costuming never had any sizes. So I remember I had to wash it myself a couple times, and I was stuck with these ripped pants because there were just no more costuming that I could get. But they're super comfortable, super nice. They breathe nicely in the heat, kind of. Sometimes they don't. It depends on the wind. If there's a little bit of wind, they breathe really nicely. But I loved wearing them. I thought they were so cute, and I really liked that costume a lot. So at Buona Bob's and Agrabah Bazaar, you would rotate between the two during your shift. So there was a set rotation that was pretty much exactly the same every time, and then you just kind of get inserted into it with whoever's break you're taking over, or whenever that position got picked up. So the first one was usually Buona Bob's Register 1, which meant you got to go to the cart, and then you got the rotation that was usually Agrabah Register 2. Yeah, that was Register 2. So then you'd go back to Agrabah, do Register 2. From there, you'd go Agrabah Register 3. Then you'd go Buona Bob's 2. And then I believe it did Agrabah Register 1. That was, I think, the main rotation. Sometimes they changed it up, but usually that seemed to be like the main rotation of what was going on. It was super nice. You'd only be out at the cart for like an hour, a little bit more, and then they'd bring you in, which was so nice because it does get really hot out there. And the leaders were also really good with coming around and being like, do you need more water? Like, can I just get you cold water instead of the water you have? There was sunscreen at the cart, so like a cast one that you could use, so you could put that on if you were worried about burning. It was really nice out there. There were umbrellas. There were also fans. They didn't really help a lot at all. And then Agrabah had a lot of Aladdin and Jasmine and Moana merchandise, so that was really fun to work in too. And Register 2 was like the main register that a lot of people used. Register 1 they'd put on sometimes mainly like the middle of the day. Register 2 was kind of like the main one. And then Register 3 was around the corner, and no one barely used Register 3 ever. Like, it was very rare. So if you got assigned Register 3, your basic job was to merchantain, and merchantaining in Adventureland is usually in the form of bubble wands, or my favorite, which is a snake charmer. So that's when you have the plastic snakes and you twirl it around and you make it look super real. And that was one of my favorite things to do there. I actually came home with a snake, if you did not know, and I loved doing that. That was like my favorite thing. I got Register 3 and I was like, yes, because it was so much fun, because everyone was like, is the snake real? And you'd be like, yes, here, it's a plastic species imported all the way from China. That was my favorite joke. The adults loved it, the kids didn't get it. It was great. If you did not get put into that rotation, you could also get things like fill up the water or take packages to the back. Just really basic stuff, super easy. They were usually like 10, 15, 20-minute tasks that you do, and then go get a new assignment. And yeah, it was super easy. That was probably my favorite place to work ever on property, actually, was Agrabah, just because of the way the rotation worked. And the people you got to talk to were really cool and awesome, and yeah, I just really liked it there, even though it was an outdoor location. But the heat really didn't bother me that much, even though it was hot and there were really hot days. But the thing I remember about it is like the guest interactions, not the heat. So Pirates is what we're going to talk about now, and that's going to be Adventureland Zone 2. So Pirates is honestly so much fun. Also, Pirates was the first experience I had in Adventureland, and it was great, and just because of that positive experience, that was why I decided to keep going back. There's a big misconception that I believe that Pirates shifts are really hard to get. A lot of people say that, and I heard a lot of people say it on my program, but I managed to get them all the time. Like, a couple times a week I would work at Pirates. Literally, one time I went a week straight working at Pirates. It was so easy to get a pirate shift for me anyway. So normally a pirate shift would be 6 or 8 hours, whereas the other shifts I normally got put on my schedule were like 10, 12 hours. So I liked them a lot because I liked the 8-hour ones, because it was really nice. I loved morning shifts there. Opening Pirates was such a good experience, and actually, one time I opened Adventureland, we're backtracking, I'm sorry, and there was no one in the park yet, and that is such a cool feeling, honestly, being in the park before it opens. It's so empty, and like, there's no guests at all, and it's just you, and sometimes you'll just like be in Adventureland and you'll just stand there and just like there's not a single person around you, and it's crazy. But I remember one morning specifically, I walked out of Agrabah and they had just lifted the tarp thing, and there were little ducklings playing in a puddle outside, and I was like, my heart just like fell. I was like, wow, best shift ever already, and it's like 7:30 in the morning and I'm just having the best day ever. And yeah, so opening parks was really great. You got to like wave to the guests as they came in. You could stand outside. One thing about Adventureland merchandise was like you could go, don't like walk down the road in Adventureland, but like you could kind of wander out if you wanted to, and no one was gonna get like mad at you or anything. Especially if there was like no guests in the store, you could just like wander out, talk to people. I'd kind of just wander out in front of Pirates when the morning was happening and there was no one in the store yet, and you kind of wave people because everyone's rushing by to get to like Thunder and Splash Mountain. So yeah, that was kind of cool. As for the Pirates costume, one of my favorite costumes, so there was like socks that you got from costuming, so that was the one thing. You didn't need to bring your own socks. Costuming had them. And then it was like capri pants, a white shirt, a belt, and then you had a optional vest and a optional hat. I would have loved the hat, however they never had any in stock when I was at costuming, so I didn't end up getting one. The vest was really nice for nighttime shifts when it got a little bit cooler. During the daytime shifts though, I would not recommend it in the summer just because it does get really, really hot. It's like a felt vest kind of thing. It's warm. But the actual costume itself breathed really well. I was never like dying of heat there, even though it is kind of another outdoor store. I was never like, oh my gosh, this is so hot. I was normally comfortable, which was really cool. So with Pirates, there were a couple more assignments you could pull than the ones you could in the other side of Adventureland in Agrabah there. So one of the main ones was register, obviously. So there were 7 registers there. So we kind of worked off of 1 and 2. Which are on the right side as you're if you're exiting the Pirates ride, they're going to be on the right side. It's like 1 and 2. 4 and 5 are going to be the leather treaty registers. So these are going to be where you can get your leather bracelets engraved and stuff. And they're going to kind of be like the main registers in a way. And then 6 and 7 are going to be off to the other side on the left side. If you're not leather treaty trained, you could not pull 4 or 5 just because people with their home location or people who were leather treaty trained were the only ones that could pull those because they're the only ones that could do it. So that's fine. I did end up getting partially leather treaty trained later in my program near the end just because I was there so often that they're like, we're not gonna, like they showed me how to fill out the sheets and everything and how to kind of put them in the queue and give them back to guests once they were done, but they didn't actually show me how to engrave them. But it just helped the process go a lot faster because Pirates had a lot of EHH cast members in there because especially near the beginning of my program they were lower staffed, and near the end they had a lot of new people who didn't really know what they were doing yet, and I had just been there so much that they kind of integrated me into that part as well, even though I was never supposed to be leather treaty trained. On top of that, you could get a sales ambassador position, which is basically just a fancy way of saying merchantaining. So what you would do is you would grab one of the iPads, and they had like a strap so you could kind of put it over your shoulder, and you'd go out on the floor and you'd talk to guests. So that was a lot of fun too, because in Pirates we didn't have the hands-off merchandise policy like we did at Walt Disney. So you could actually play with some of the toys in that, so you could get a sword and have like a little sword fight with some of the kids, or once again the snake twirling was there too, which I once again loved, and your goal was just to go around and talk to guests. I handed out stickers sometimes. I loved handing out stickers. If you were not any of those things, you would get like a 20-minute task, which they just called tasking. A lot of places just called it tasking, which just meant you were doing random stuff to help people out. Even though your thing would say like one specific thing you're supposed to be doing, you could kind of just like help where is needed sort of thing. So you'd get water barrel, which is just fill up the coolers, or merchantain for 20 minutes. That was one you got if they had like too many people there the day, and just be like, merchantain, merchantain, merchantain. Be like, okay. But it was still fun. Oh, you could get like packages or something, helping take packages to the back, go backs, putting stuff back out on the floor that people didn't want anymore, little stuff like that, like just simple 20-minute tasks. So that's pretty much the main rundown of Adventureland. I cannot talk highly enough about the leaders there and the coordinators and the other cast members that I worked with. I loved everyone I met there, and it was such an amazing experience, and in the end I felt like that kind of was my home. I was just being included so much more there than I was at mainly my home location, and it was a little family, and the fact that by the end of my program too I was considered a part of that family. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any more questions about Adventureland, make sure you just comment them below or message me or something, because I am more than happy to answer them. Once again, it was just such an amazing location for me to work at. I loved it so much, and I cannot do anything but say like the highest amount of things about that location and the people there. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a magical rest of your day.